Yes, we are looking at funding and the fiscal issue and saying instead of being process-oriented, funding should be based upon results and outcomes.
Yeah, based funding on results, and outcomes. Table 9.
Another interesting concept is the concept of scalability, something California Forward will have to grapple with as you go from 38 million to 55 million in the state. Finding ways of leveraging the input that happens in smaller groups to larger groups. Scalability becomes an important factor.
So you're talking too about scalability of input.
Of input, right.
Thank you. Let's this is great. I'm really impressed. Thank you guys. Why don't we start, we've allowed a few minutes to talk about this in plenary. I know that if you're anything like the group I was in, you started to dig into it already in the small group, but I want to surface some of the discussions that you've had in your small group. What about these success factors? Are there any limitations? Are they ever in conflict with each other? Or if you have any others to add, you can also add them as well. We have a few minutes for this. So just raise your hand and we'll get you a mic.
I have a separate question. Will all the transcribed notes, will these notes be transcribed and available and sent to the participants? These notes.
That is a good question.
Or will it just be, let's say yes.
Yeah. Yes, they will be transcribed. Yes, we need a mic.
Scott Syfax. I think that when it comes to success factors, one is the table being set to have an honest dialogue and focusing on the problem or focusing on coming up with a solution, or is it a directed outcome? Because what oftentimes happens is that when you get divergent stakeholders around the table, one or more of them feels that there's a directed outcome and that the invitation into the process is not an honest one. It's one in order to capture a hostage rather than to solicit input and work around a common objective.
And I also want to encourage you to think about, we talked about the critical success factors as being the building blocks for potential statewide policy change. But if you have any ideas about statewide policy change, please share those as well. Just raise your hand. Nancy, did you want to, did I just hear your hand?
I'll say that.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. You need a mic. Go ahead.
Along with collaborative leadership, what we also talked about is the acknowledgement that the individual people also have people to be accountable to, and that their visions may be different. And so that oftentimes will butt heads against this regional coalition, and you want to be very kumbaya about things, but you have to realize, especially in an elected official capacity, you have people that you're accountable to. And as much as you want to play nice with everybody else, you have to realize that at the end of the day, you're coming home and facing a constituent base or an organization you represent, and you have to make sure that your representation was respectful of your organization's values and goals while still trying to be collaborative, and that's oftentimes very difficult when those organizations don't usually agree, or the constituent basis. And so that's, I think, a constant challenge is how do we work together, but how do we stay honest and true to who we represent and who we work for.
Carol Wright, I'd like to address that first comment, is the table being set to have an honest dialogue. I think it's very important to pay attention to who's setting the table, and that there be adequate resources to bring in credible, experienced, competent facilitators to create the process and shepherd the process. so that everybody has confidence in the process and is willing and able to fully engage.
I'm Sergey Strickland. There was a comment made here. We talked about something that's been talked about here quite a bit, a real commitment to diversity, and that commitment to diversity is actually the key to being the salvation to come out of the dire consequence, because that's where the new ideas are going to come from. But in fact, it's very important that it be real, and that it be real in the way about the issue of power and resources. That we really take an honest look at where is the power in the situation, who has the power, and is that power being shared, and are all the people at the table being given equal power? And in fact, those that have the muscle, are they ready to share their muscle for the common good? That's a big deal, and it's important to speak about it honestly. Otherwise, it's all ridiculous. Thank you.
So commitment to diversity, but also access to power in that commitment.
Well, share, it's the way, no, not actually, it's the way people who have the power actually give up, share it, say, okay, I can control this situation because of who I am and what I got. But it's important to me, we're about to drive over a cliff, so I'm going to turn the steering wheel over. Yeah, I got the steering wheel. I'm going to turn the steering wheel over on the steering because my steering has gotten so cliffs. I'm about to go over the cliff. So let's okay, we're here in the 11th hour. Let's share it. I'm ready to give it up a little bit.
Howard Newens. I am a 32-year bureaucrat, and here is a warning, and that the outcome of all this work is going to result in a set of laws. And my feeling is that uncontrolled lawmaking will cast a rigid system, will create more bureaucracy, and so therefore may stifle the very things that we want to be alive, and that's our creativity in simplifying the system and making it work for people.
You don't look a day over 29. Who else? Hungry?
Don't be hungry.
I believe one critical success factor is accessibility. We talked about diversity and community, but it's getting that information out to the people so that they know what's going on in their government, so the education and tools necessary to make sure that those people are getting that knowledge they need to handle the situations out there.
Anybody else?
Sorry, you're getting a lot from this table. But one of the things that we had talked about was, a lot of the success stories were coming from regional, local exercises and efforts. And how does that, how can you affect that from a state level? And what we had, I think, agreed to at this table was that success oftentimes occurs when it's percolating up, and I think that was one of the things I believe that Mike had said was that the blueprint was because it was a percolation from local to regional, and so we talked a lot about how to make sure that those things that percolate up from a regional perspective, that the essence of those policies when they go to the state level reflect what the success elements are in it.
So that statewide policy should allow what's happening in the region to come up? Is that what you're saying?
Right,
They
but
should be
that it
structured
doesn't,
that way.
that then the mandates aren't, that the state mandates that get created aren't that they still reflect a regional ability.